Israel and Iran trading strikes on the fifth day of conflict with no end in sight.
President Trump warned residents to get out. Channel 3's Ike Ben-David spoke with a UVM professor about the significance of this battle and what it could mean for the U.S.
The Israel-Iran war continues to intensify with no end in sight. Peter Henney is the director of Middle East Studies at the University of Vermont. Peter, how did we get here?
Well, there's been tensions between the two countries for a while, right? Iran's been supporting militants like Hezbollah. Israel's been concerned about Iran's nuclear weapons capabilities. They exchanged fire earlier in the context of the Gaza war when Israel tried to, kind of successfully took out a lot of Iran's anti-aircraft capabilities. I think what started this was, there's growing concern that Iran had moved forward with its nuclear weapons program, right? International authorities have verified this. And there's fear that with Iran's proxies around the region, like Hezbollah, weakened, that Iran might rush forward to get a nuclear capability. And so I think that's why Israel launched this attack. If it's going to be successful is a different question.
Is there a way the U.S. doesn't get involved?
Well, it's hard, right? The Trump administration has expressed a desire to negotiate a deal with Iran on nuclear weapons. President Trump thinks of himself as a deal maker, but Israel is pressuring the United States heavily to use some of our heavier ordnance that would take out some of Iran's hidden nuclear facilities. So avoiding involvement basically means moving forward with a deal with Iran to cut back on its nuclear enrichment, which is getting harder to do, I think, as the fighting goes on.
Now, what do you think Prime Minister Netanyahu would consider a win in this situation?
The stated goal is to get rid of Iran's nuclear capabilities, but he realizes that's impossible without U.S. involvement. It's very possible he might redefine success, say, well, we've degraded their capabilities, we've taken out top military leadership, it's harder for Iran to strike us, and that way he can back down while saving face.
Now, what impact does this conflict have on the Gaza situation, where there are still hostages and Hamas is still in charge?
There has been pressure on the Netanyahu government to focus more on freeing hostages, and it's possible that fear of a confrontation with Iran might dampen some of those protests within Israel.
And kind of staying in Gaza for a second, has there been any impact from a humanitarian perspective and an economic side over the last few days with this?
There's been concerns about provision of aid to Gaza has been the concern all along. There's been some fighting at some of the aid distribution sites and concern about how effective they are. But I don't think it's going to affect it directly. It's just still a tough humanitarian situation in Gaza.
Peter Henney, really appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, great. Thanks.